Well, folks, it is indeed that time of the year again. By the fact that I have Oakland Raiders branded duct tape here, here hopefully to amend 14 seasons of abject failure and heartbreak. It's time for that yearly tradition here at This May or May Not Be Satire, our annual preview of the upcoming Oakland Raiders season. And I think this year, more than just about any year in recent memory, there's really no excuse. I mean, the Raiders should post their first winning season since the Super Bowl run back in 2002. They should feasibly finish with double digits in the win column. They should make the playoffs. And just looking at the talent we have on both sides of the ball, this is a team that should not only make the playoffs, but win at least one, maybe even two games. Just saying. I know it sounds crazy, but we all thought it was crazy to have Leicester City win the Premier League Championship this time last year too, and look what happened. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at my predictions for who's going to be on the starting roster, both offense and defense. Not a whole lot of surprises, so that'll be quick. And then we'll go on to my predictions for all 16 regular season Oakland Raiders games. So, just to begin, we're going to take a look at the offensive side of the ball, see if you can get a good look there. It's pretty much what you expect. I mean, the O-line looks fantastic. You got Donald Penn, you got Gabe Jackson, you got Rodney Hudson, you got Caliche coming in from the Ravens, and you've got Austin Howard. Now, on that final offensive tackle position, you'll see that I actually have Menelik Watson penciled in, because I do think that while Austin Howard will get the starting job, I think by the time the season wraps up, it'll be going to Menelik. I don't know if it's going to be because of injury or just, substandard play, but that's got a feeling those two are going to be locked in a battle all season long for the starting job. So what can I say about the O-line? It's great. It's fantastic. It's definitely the best in the AFC, maybe even the best in the entire NFL, with the possible exception of the Dallas Cowboys O-line. So yeah, with just a beefed-up line like that, there is no excuse for the Raiders not put up a lot of offensive numbers this year. And I assure you, as long as the big players remain healthy, that will be the case. Now, I think a huge variable here, this is something I noticed while watching the games last year. If you look at Rodney Hudson, he was out a couple of games last year, and those games were really among the worst the Raiders played all year long. So I think a huge key to the success of the O-line, and therefore the success of the offense in general, is having Rodney Hudson. If Rodney Hudson starts and finishes all 16 games this year, I assure you the Raiders will make the playoffs. No question about that. He's that good. He's an incredible rock, and really have your fingers crossed he stays healthy because we need him. So yeah, on paper, outstanding O-line. Nothing negative to say about that whatsoever. As far as the rest of the offense, Derek Carr, for the first two seasons, he's thrown more touchdowns than any other player except Dan Marino. And I think there may be one more, but whatever. If you're in Dan Marino category, just 2 seasons in, you're a great quarterback. Just pray he stays healthy. I'm not really big on Matt McGloin or Connor Cook at this point. Derek Carr, he's going to get a lot of passes. I guarantee you, as long as he stays healthy and the O-line is good, he's going to get about 4,500 yards by the time Christmas rolls around. 5,000, kind of stretching a bit, but he's going to get a lot of touchdowns. In fact, I think at the end of the season, he might even throw for about 28, 29, maybe even 30. I'm a believer. He's going to have a lot of yardage. Fantasy football players, take note. As far as our receiving cores, we got Michael Crabtree, we got Amari Cooper. And Amari Cooper, the big problem with him is he keeps dropping the balls. But this year I think he's got that sophomore slump over with. He's going there, he's going to catch, and we already saw what he can do. He's incredibly impressive running routes, fast dude out there moving like Barry Sanders. He's going to get a lot of points. As a matter of fact, I think that between Crabtree and Cooper, Derek Carr is going to throw 20 touchdown passes to those guys. I'm a believer. The regular season, it's going to be great. In the slot, I've got Seth Roberts. Really underappreciated talent, great guy. And for the tight end, I'm going to go with Clive Walford. Like I said, he didn't really kind of rise up to expectations last year, but I think this year he's going to be a breakout player and give the Raiders even more aerial weapons, and they're going to be fun to watch in the air. Now, probably the weakest point on the offense is the running back situation. Now, Latavius Murray, he did in fact have 1,000 yards last year, but he struggled a lot. I mean, there were a lot of turnovers. I mean, that game against Pittsburgh, I mean, he was just throwing the ball around like it was confetti. So unless he really, really gears up and becomes a more steady player, I'm not really see this team really, racking up a lot of numbers on the ground. Now, having Marcel Reese to balance the load, that's a huge advantage for the Raiders because he's been very consistent. He can get a lot of points. He's very steady. He's going to help that run game. Now, the big variables here, I think, are Jameis Olawale, who's a really good player. I mean, not a lot of people give him as much credit. He's had some really good runs over the years. And I think this new kid, DeAndre Washington, I think he could be very, very, very good. He's going to get some snaps. And by the time the year is over, we might just have a new starting halfback for the Raiders. Just saying, calling it early. Murray, he's going to get 800, 900 yards. Lower production from last year because you got Marcel Reese back. But this Washington kid, watch out. I expect big things out of him. All right, moving on to the defense. Now, the thing about this, I think the Raiders are in a position where they can really kind of switch things out. I mean, right now we're kind of seeing them looking as running a 4-3. But they can very, very easily switch that up and be a dynamic 3-4 defense as well. So that's a huge, huge advantage. Obviously, free agency totally beefed up defense. Front four, Khalil Mack, best defensive player in the NFL as far as I'm concerned. J.J. Watt, not buying it. Going Khalil. This dude's going to have, 15, 20 sacks by the time the year's over. I mean, that may sound like I'm throwing out some huge numbers, but you know what? That's just what I'm seeing. We got Justin Ellis, and we got Dan Williams, and we've got Mario Edwards lining out the defensive line. And the thing about that is the only question mark that I have is Mario Edwards. He's a good player, but just from what I've seen from Jihad Ward, he's going to get some snaps. He might play a couple of games. Not sure if he'll get the final starting position over Mario Edwards, but he's going to make it interesting. All right, so looking at our linebacker core, we got Malcolm Smith, we got Ben Heaney, we got Bruce Irvin, and I think Shalik Calhoun will probably get a couple of snaps in there as well. He might play 3 or 4 games in place of Malcolm Smith. So yeah, very good linebacking core. And of course, to go to our deep field, we've got Sean Smith from Kansas City. We've got the first rounder Carl Joseph, who we're going to pray is going to stay healthy because if he's good, he's going to be great. We got Reggie Nelson coming in from Cincinnati, and we got David Amerson cosplaying as Charles Woodson. So yeah, you look at this, there's not really a weak link on the entire team. This is just an incredibly intensified and enhanced team in every way, shape, and form, basically. With Mac being the anchor, a much better defense against the deep pass than last year. Should be good stopping the run too. So yeah, offense looks great, defense looks great, but that's all on paper. What happens when the games actually begin? And now we're going to take a look at that. Now what I decided to do is I'm going to list all 16 regular season games. We're going to do something a little bit different from in years past. We're actually going to rank these games based on the probability that the Raiders will win them. So we're going to use green for games that the Raiders really should win, yellow for could go either way, and red for probably not going to be a silver and black victory. So we're going to start with September 11th, and we got the Raiders going to New Orleans, take on the Saints. Saints, absolutely god-awful defense. I think this will be a showcase for the Raiders for sure, to kind of show what they have. They should win by double digits here. I'm going to give this a big W for the Raiders in Week 1. September 18th, they only actually have one home game while the Oakland A's should be playing baseball, so you only have the crappy field for one game. And that's against the Falcons, and I don't really think the Falcons have improved much from last year. I think this is another one where the Raiders really should go out there. They have that huge Week 1 win over the Saints, and then they have their first game at home, and I think it should be just as impressive. They start off 2-0. All right, so Tennessee in Week 3 is a very close game we saw last year when the Raiders went to play the Titans at Nissan Field. Tennessee, I think it's going to be a little bit closer than we would hope, but really looking at the defense of the Titans and basically the offense of the Raiders and what they're throwing, there's really no reason for this not to be another W for the Raiders. So I have them expectedly to win that one as well. Going against Baltimore, I think Baltimore's one of those teams going to be a lot better than people are kind of predicting. but I still think that they're not quite there. They're not as offensively loaded. They're not as defensively loaded. And I think our good friend Kalichi is going to go in there and make a huge, huge impression as he beats his former team. Raiders should win this one pretty easy. So I got them going 4-0 already. Going against San Diego at home, the Chargers, they're just really kind of in tailspin mode at this point. They haven't improved from last year. There's really no reason for the Raiders not win that one. So as you can see, I have them going 5-0 at this point. But now on October 16th, I see them running their first trap game. This is the home game against Kansas City. Now, if you saw Kansas City play last year, one of the best offensive teams in the league, one of the best defensive teams in the league. So looking at this, I just kind of, I don't know, I feel iffy. I mean, I think the Raiders should make it close, but I still think the Chiefs, as much as I hate to say it, on paper, statistically, are a better team. They have a proven track record. They know how to beat us. I think they go in there and they win this one. So we dropped to 5-1. Okay, October 23rd. This is another trap game. I didn't seem like it would be a trap game at the beginning of the season, but just looking at the way Jacksonville's loaded up, how they've been looking in practice, I mean, they do have players falling asleep in ponds and almost getting swallowed up in jeeps, but that's sort of an aside. This is a trap game. I mean, this could be close. I mean, the Raiders, I think, are still a better team overall, but you never know. You're playing in North Florida. Crazy things happen. Jacksonville might be able to steal this away when in a close one. So I'm leaving that one as a 50-50. Okay. Tampa Bay, another one where I got to say, I'm feeling iffy about it because I think Tampa Bay is going to be a playoff team this year. They are much improved. And they got a really good run game, and I think there's one key deficiency for the defensive line early on. I think it's going to be stopping the run. It's going to be good, but if whether they can contain a mobile quarterback like Jameis Winston, which is something you really don't see really at all in the AFC, that's going to be some question marks. So that is going to be half and half. But I do think November 6th, the last game for the bye, the Raiders are hosting Denver. I think Denver, they're still going to be a team with a winning record this year, but the quarterback situation is going to be horrible, and the Raiders are going to have a lot of fun with this one. I think they go in there and they beat Denver by double digits. I mean, the defense for the Broncos is still great, but I think defense for the Raiders just going to play a little bit better this game, and they're going to be able to contain the offense as well, and the Raiders defense, led by Khalil Mack, is going to win this one for them, like they did in that 15-12 game last season. Okay, we come back November 21st. That is the game against the Texans down in Mexico City. I think this is another one where the Raiders are going to win. I mean, just looking at the Texans, I think they're nowhere near as good. And in case you haven't noticed, the quarterback for Houston, good old Osweiler. The Raiders, you still have Khalil Mack playing. We know what happened last time. Raiders go in, another good defensive showing. Should be an easy win. All right, now here on November 27th, we come to the first game of the year that I say to myself, okay, the Raiders have no shot. That's against Carolina. Like I said, all the same things I said about the Jameis Winston game in Tampa Bay. The Raiders, I'm just not sure what they can do with a scrambling quarterback, and that Panthers defense, they're tough. They're going to be just as good as last year, if not even better, as terrifying as that sounds. So I got that as the one bona fide loss so far of the year for the Raiders. Come December 4th, I want to do this as a W. I really do, but it's coming off that loss to Carolina, and I think things can happen. Buffalo, they got a little bit better defense, people give them credit for. So that game on December 4th, returning in Oakland, I think, is half and half at this point. Don't want it to be, but it could. Hate to break it out again, but I got another almost lock for a loss, and that's December 8th when they're playing at Kansas City just 4 days after the game against Buffalo. Now you can kind of see why I got it a 50-50 for the Buffalo game. But I think actually I'm kind of going back to that being a strong loss more than a half and half, because you have those really, really hard games. You got the tough game against Carolina, then the game at Kansas City, which I just don't like the Raiders' chances there. I mean, it's going to be a tough crowd. It's on short notice. It's on 4 games notice. I just don't like where that's headed. Thankfully, December 18th, they're going to San Diego. Once again, first verse, same as the second. Really shouldn't have much trouble there. Got the Raiders winning. December 24th, they're hosting Indianapolis, and I think Indianapolis is probably going to be a playoff team, so it should be interesting. I think it's going to be a close game no matter what. I'm kind of leaning more towards the Raiders winning that one than losing it, but got to give it a half and half. And lastly, it's going to sound weird that I'm got the final game of the season, January 1st, at Denver against the defending Super Bowl champions. But I actually really like the Raiders' chances in this game. I think the Raiders are going to have Denver's number all season long. I think their quarterback situation is still going to be a nightmare. And while the defense is good, the offense is going to be very, very poor. And I think the Raiders go in there and they beat Denver. They beat them hard, and it's probably going to be enough to keep them out of the playoffs. So just to recap what we have so far. As far as the high range and the low range. The high range Raiders victories, I'll do right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 victories there. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at least 5 possible victories. So the absolute highest margin I'm going to have them is going 14-2. Like I said, that is the high end mark. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's possible. As far as the low end mark, like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got the Raiders going 9-7, posting their first winning season since 2002. Not really sure if that's enough to actually get them in the playoffs, but hey, at least it's on the positive side of the win-loss column. And as far as the law of averages, when you take a look at those 5 games that I'm just not sure about, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Raiders win at least 2 of them. So as far as my overall average, just my median prediction, I think the Raiders are going to go 11-5 this year. I think they're going to have the losses against Kansas City for sure in December 8th, against Carolina on November 27th. They might drop a hard one somewhere along the line. I think they might lose to Buffalo on December 4th. They might lose to Jacksonville, and they might lose the early game against Kansas City, or they might lose to Tampa Bay. So, yeah, lots of opportunities there for trap games. But overall, I think if the Raiders' season just does not go as planned and everything goes wrong, I think they still finish as a 9-17. If everything goes right, 14-2. But that's incredibly unlikely. Even though the Carolina Panthers did go from 7-9 and to 14-2 from 2014 to 2015, so let's not say this without a little bit of merit, but I still think it's a little bit unrealistic. So yeah, for me, I'm going to say the Raiders go 11-5. I think they win a lot of games early. They have that really hard November 27th through December 8th schedule. They'll probably drop those games, but I think they rebound. They sweep Denver. They sweep San Diego. They at least play hard for one game against Kansas City, and really nobody out there, except for maybe Jacksonville or Tampa Bay, I think has the ability to kind of go in there and score an upset over them. So yeah, 11-5. I still think the Chiefs are going to end up winning the AFC West, but just all things considered, this should be enough to get the Raiders in the playoffs. Maybe even as high as a 5th seed, and from there, well, anything can happen. All I know is this year, if you're a Raiders fan, you've got more optimism than you've had in a long time. And I, for one, cannot wait to get the pigskin rolling.